I'd argue that we're not going to make our same progress against climate change if we choose to get our oil and gas resources from areas of the world that have lower environmental standards. It's been documented by a national lab that the production in the Gulf of Mexico has the lowest carbon intensity of any oil that comes to our nation to be refined. Since we know we're going to be using oil, why not get it where there's a lower carbon intensity and, oh, by the way, creates American jobs? So, Ms. Coit, there's been a kind of perception that this administration is intent upon killing with the death of 1,000 cuts domestic oil and gas production. Tell me how this 10-mile-per-hour limit on speed on boats in the Gulf of Mexico applied only to those involved with oil and gas industry, not the military, not the recreation, not the fishing, not the, you name it, only to those, how this doesn't represent hostility by the administration to the jobs that the working Americans have in that industry.
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I want to deconflate two things. There is a biological opinion from 2020 that requires a 10-knot speed for the oil and gas industry in the core Rice's Whale area.
Now, core,
which is in
define core.
It's in the eastern part of the Gulf.
Eastern.
Yeah, there was a map. I don't think you were in the room.
I saw it. So it's eastern, not stretching to the Texas coast.
That's where the current vessel speed restriction applies. I think you're also then referencing the, there is a
stretch across the Gulf of Mexico, where there's been only one confirmed sighting of a rice whale, period, end of story. Others are unconfirmed, and yet it applies only to vessels involved with offshore gas development.
The reason for that is it was the result of a Section 7 consultation under the Endangered Species Act for a federal action related to oil and gas development when we considered impact.
If it were really considered that important, you would stretch beyond that section into all others. Now, we can leave it as another argument as to whether or not it's justified. The setting of one whale and no other that has been confirmed to have something which is so far-reaching is, again, the reason why folks think this is a part of a pattern of a death of 1,000 cuts of all the jobs associated for working Americans in that industry. Succinctly, can you tell me why that perception would not be true?
I don't believe it's true. I believe we're able to implement the Endangered Species Act while allowing productive oil and gas development.
But 10 miles per hour does not allow for productive oil and gas.
And that we've done that. At the moment, I think you're referring to a proposed critical habitat map when you're talking about the sightings. And I believe you were out of the room when I mentioned that we also have consistent passive acoustic monitoring that demonstrates.
I'm told that there's been no confirmed sighting, and the one that had been proposed by the Coast Guard was later retracted because they said that it was the wrong species, and so that there is no evidence. It's just, you know, let's find a reason to justify the rule.
The rule is intended to mitigate threats to Rice's whale, and we have the best available science demonstrating that they.
You know, there's always kind of
and
I don't mean this to be offensive, but the last refuge of the scoundrel, and I don't mind calling you a scoundrel, I'm just making a quote. Last refuge of the scoundrel is saying that's what the science says. And we've seen consistently how that's been used to manipulate the American people. Yes, at times science clearly says something. It clearly does. But at other times that's kind of a refuge for a rule. Well, science says it, so therefore we've got to go there. There has been one confirmed sighting of a rice whale outside that core area, ever. And that's being used to create a band from Florida to Texas through which, in an uneconomical way, vessels required to develop outer continental shelf oil can only go at 10 miles per hour. But no other vessel, not military, not recreational, not fishing, et cetera. Now, if you're the guy and the gal making your living, sending your kid to a better school because you work in an industry related to that, as many in Louisiana and other areas do, you got to feel like you got a big target on you by the Biden administration. They're coming after me. They're coming after my job. They don't care about me. They just care about their agenda, which tends to be ideological and not associated with my own economic needs. And that's what the science says is the easy kind of rope-a-dope. But there's been one sighting. I've used all my time on this one rant, and I apologize. Thank you.